You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hey, mamas. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Mama Work It podcast. Today, our guest is Andrea Shuman, a mom of two boys, serial entrepreneur, and Ayurvedic practitioner, master herbalist with a specialty in women's health. I paused there because I wanted to make sure I said it correctly. Anyway, Andrea has over 20 years of experience in patient care and has worked with scores of women to address concerns related to hormones, mental wellness, and life transitions, as well as complex chronic conditions. She's the founder and CEO of Mycrodrops, a mental wellness brand using herbs, functional mushrooms, and foods to improve stress response and nervous system health. Andrea has more than 30 years of experience with psychedelic medicines and has used them therapeutically for her own trauma healing, as well as offering consultations to others about microdosing. Andrea is on a mission to empower individuals to self-advocate in the mental health space and take control of their narrative and story. Andrea, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Awesome. Well, I always love to hear straight from our guests. Tell us a little bit more about your story, how you got started in this space.
Yeah, well, I started in the alternative healing space really young. I always did massage since I was a tiny kid. And right out of high school, I graduated early and I went directly to massage school where I was exposed to all kinds of alternative medicines, including Ayurveda, including herbal medicine, including aromatherapy and things like that. And I practiced for years before I eventually realized I needed more tools. And I went into Ayurvedic medicine. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Ayurveda, it's traditional Indian medicine. So it's a full system of medicine, similar to traditional Chinese medicine that uses diet and herbs and lifestyle and a variety of different types of treatments for healthcare. So I practiced Ayurveda for years, and throughout my entire career, the population that's been most drawn to me has been women who are in the demographic I'm in now, women in midlife transition. So even since I was a 17-year-old massage therapist, I've had 40-something-year-old women coming to me because this is a time where you really need a lot of support. So how I got to where I am now was a path of starting a wellness center, owning an Ayurvedic wellness center, being an entrepreneur, having all kinds of balls in the air, creating babies at the same time, and eventually landing myself squarely out of balance and then needing to go ahead and bring myself back into balance. So that is the kind of short version of how I find myself where I am right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many entrepreneurs that I speak to, myself included, it's like our own personal journey is such a foundational element in how we land where we land in business. And I think that makes us so much more empathetic too in the way we deliver the product, the service, and how we market and how we talk to our clients. I mean, it all kind of comes full circle in that way.
Absolutely. We can't get away with just being perfect and having it all together and showing people, hey, here's the light and the way of how you get to this place of awesomeness without having traversed the difficult terrain ourselves first. Otherwise, it is inauthentic and doesn't come from a place of true knowing.
For sure. Yeah. Well, today we're talking all about taking back control of our health, our mental health specifically, and how to holistically do that. So let's get started by discussing the current vibe, the trends out there when it comes to mental health, specifically for moms.
Yeah. So The statistics around mental health are pretty disturbing right now. Obviously, we've all seen the conversations in the news. We've heard that uh, depression, anxiety, things like that are on the rise. We've heard that the prescriptions of mental health medications are on the rise. What a lot of people don't realize was that that was happening pre pandemic. And the reality of where we find ourselves is a place where 1 in 5 humans in the United States that you see on the street are on psychiatric medication. So if you just take a moment and that's like you are at the grocery store and you look around, 1 in 5 of those people is on a psychiatric medication, which can have great consequences and other side effects and things like that. What we also know from the American Psychiatric Association is that this represents overprescribing by a great deal. Most psychiatric medications come from your GP, not from your psychiatrist. And the great majority of people on these medications have not seen that practitioner to reevaluate their being on those prescriptions to begin with. So beyond that, it has kind of societal consequences, which are one of the big ones is that a study in 2017 showed that empathetic response to the pain of others was reduced by those on antidepressants. So this is a big deal. Why? Because if we have so many people on antidepressants and they decrease empathy, and they've been shown to decrease empathy, it's sort of a real good setup for where we find ourselves right now in this very polarized environment. So, what we see in the trends is people getting on these medications in sheer numbers with zero plan to get off. The medications, by and large, were developed for use for 2 years and under, supposed to be about 6 months, so between 6 months and 2 years. The average use is far more than 2 years. So, anytime you're on these medications for more than 2 years, you're using these medications off label and without evidence. So, right now, that's where we find ourselves. If you watch Hulu, you're going to see commercials where you can just go online, go to a simple.com address, fill out an online quiz, and before you know it, you have antidepressants in the mail on their way to you. Now, that is the environment that we find ourselves in.
Wow. Wow. 1 in 5. That's incredible. And I had no idea that anybody could just order these so easily. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I won't mention the name of the URL I saw advertised yesterday, but they weren't even advocating discussing it with your doctor. They were just advocating. So apparently, they must have MDs or licensed practitioners that work through their sites and things like that. But it is not hard to get a hold of antidepressants. And at this point, it's a simple checkup where you go in and you say, "Hey, I'm feeling a little bit down," and before you know it, you're walking out with a prescription for SSRIs. They're being prescribed extremely liberally right now, to the shock of even the organizations that used to be in support of them, including the American Psychiatric Organization.
Wow. That's so interesting. So, your approach is quite different. Obviously, you take a more holistic approach, right? How does it differ? What are some ways that you sort of, you know, I won't say diagnose, but kind of like treat this or help people that come to you that are coming to you with those types of symptoms?
Yeah, so I don't actively have a practice these days where I'm working with a lot of Ayurvedic patients because I am running my company right now. But at the time that I was very active in practicing. I will say that I usually saw people when they were kind of at the end of their Western medicine rope. They often had already been through a great deal of things. People kind of rarely came to me at the beginning, which is unfortunate because we can do a lot when you come early in the process. So when I'm seeing people coming in, I'm looking at their whole life and how their whole life expresses. I'm not looking at the symptom of depression. I'm looking at what they're eating. I'm looking at the other things that they're taking into their body, maybe alcohol, maybe marijuana, maybe other types of medications, maybe any number of environmental factors, their job, whether or not they have kids, if they're sleeping. There's all kinds of factors that we're taking in that are extremely important to mental health. One of the biggest ones when we're talking about women or people presenting with what we consider classically female anatomy is hormonal health, hormonal regulation. Um, One of the things people don't understand is that women are medicated at twice the rate of men for on antidepressants, and this comes from a pretty obvious place. In that we all, while we're in our cyclical health, while we are having periods, while we are having babies, while we are going through menopause, and men are in different positions in our life cycle. Um, Throughout the month, our emotions fluctuate with our hormones. So one of the things to understand is that what's being medicated with these antidepressants is often a hormonal problem. So we look really clearly at the hormones first, because if we can straighten out what's happening in the hormonal system in the body, then it's much easier to look at these other symptoms, these mental health symptoms, as symptoms of other problems in the body and not a problem with the brain or the personality or the person itself. There's obviously previously, there's been a lot of stigma around psychiatric medications. And so there was I think, well intentioned movement to destigmatize conditions like depression and anxiety. And that's absolutely important to do so. That being said, when we did that, we took the power away from the person and we just said, you have a thing, you have a disease. This is what's wrong with you. This is what's wrong with your brain. And this is the pill that's going to fix your brain. But in truth, it's not even sort of true. So when somebody is having depression or anxiety and it's part of their cycle, which is common with women, you'll find that, like, maybe you're a little irritable and angry the week before your menstrual cycle. When that goes to extreme and you're having a real problem with it, like you really can't control it, they call that PMDD. And what people aren't aware is that they give them Prozac for that, except for now it's called Serafem. Same drug, different target. Okay, it doesn't actually fix your hormonal system. It doesn't do any of that. It just medicates the symptom. So, what I do, looking at the hormones, looking at the diet, looking at the sleep, looking at the lifestyle, looking at all of these pieces, is to figure out what pieces need to be brought into balance to fix what is coming out as a symptom. And in the case of, the herbs that I'm working with now, primarily in Mycrodrops, we're targeting mental health symptoms, but they don't only do that. These herbs work with the hormonal system and the mental health system by making the brain function better, not simply by taking down a symptom, numbing the emotional body, or making you unaware of the pain associated with a feeling. So, like I said, I know it's a long answer to what you asked, but really, we have to look at the entire person and their lived experience so that we are appropriately targeting what it is that's bringing them the symptom to begin with.
Yeah, that's great advice and so true. All right, it feels like trauma affects some people more than others, like more heavily than others, right? Um, and just depending on what that trauma is or just how we respond to it and all those things. Now, with that said, do you believe everyone out there can benefit from your type of healing approaches, whether they're consciously experiencing side effects of the trauma or maybe subconsciously experiencing it? Like maybe they have this subconscious healing that they don't even know needs healing, but it needs to happen.
Well, I come from an Ayurvedic background that says, one man's medicine is another man's poison. Everything is going to be good for somebody, not everything is going to be good for everybody. So, my approach is always multi pronged. I do believe that when people try to sell you any magic pill, whether it be an alternative medicine, herbal one, or a prescribed one, uh, you're always looking at snake oil when that's the only solution that's being presented. It always takes a multi pronged approach. And when you are a busy mom, I get that that sounds like a lot. But really, what we're dealing with is tiny little micro shifts in your lifestyle, in your day, and how you show up. That help these things. That sometimes includes looking at diet, that sometimes includes looking at lifestyle, that sometimes includes looking at herbal medicine or prescription medicine or any number of things. Or even, which we haven't talked about yet, the whole world of microdosing, which is now becoming a lot more talked about, a bit out of the closet, and quite popular among busy moms for the reason that it helps you become a better observer of your own behavior and what's going on in your life. So, do I believe everyone can benefit? I say with a caveat, everyone can benefit from a multi-pronged approach that includes natural medicine. Not every single person is going to benefit from my specific formulas that I put out on my website. There are going to be caveats of our current, the current line that's out. There's a few medications that don't mix well with some of our formulations, but real specific types of blood thinners that don't work well with. There's chocolate, there's cacao in some of our formulas. So I will never say that one medication, herb, or formula will work for everybody. That's usually a red flag. So no. And when you're working with adaptogens, which are the class of herbs I'm largely working with, adaptogens are things that can work for multiple things in your body, depending on the context that they're in. They help the body adapt to stress. They help the brain function better. Um, I think that most people can benefit from adaptogens as a general class and nootropics, which is brain supporting herbs and also synthesized molecules that can help memory and attention and things like that. I believe most people can benefit from those classes, whether that is like specific parts of that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. So let's talk about microdosing a little bit. Like, you're the creator of Mycrodrops, natural healing elixirs, right? Can you tell us more about these? Like, what they do? Why might someone want to try this type of medicine? I'm so in the dark on this topic, and I'm so curious about it.
Okay, so let's start with microdosing 101. What is microdosing? Microdosing is taking small amounts, really small amounts of a substance. In this case, we're talking about psychedelics. In this case, we're even talking more specifically about what is known colloquially as magic mushrooms. And when we're talking about small amounts of the chemical in that is called psilocybin, very small amounts, you're not talking about things that are going to make you high. You're not talking about things that are going to interrupt your day. You're talking about what we call sub-perceptual amounts of this medication. That means that when you have taken a microdose, you are doing a spreadsheet, making food for your kids, you are running around to PTA meetings, you are doing whatever it is that you need to do, you are doing your work. This method was popularized by people at work. This is absolutely not a way to get high. So I'm going to just make sure that that sinks in really clearly. Microdosing does not make you high. So that is number one. These medications used in very small amounts help to do a kind of mini version of what happens when they're used in large amounts, which is to help you become a better observer of yourself. And I can't minimize how important that is when we are unaware of how we're behaving, how we sound when we speak, what actions we're taking, what repeated stimulus causes the repeated same response over and over again. When we're unaware of these things, we simply can't heal them. That's when we go and we look outside of ourselves for help. So, microdosing in this case was what led me to create Mycrodrops. And Mycrodrops contain absolutely no psychedelics, psilocybin, or any type of illicit substance. Mycrodrops is a company that supports the use of microdosing because all of our formulas are synergistic, meaning they make the substance work better and more clearly. So when somebody is microdosing, they're often doing it for one of three main reasons. People have learned to microdose for anxiety, for depression, and for lack of focus or increased flow state. Those are the three most popular reasons that people microdose. So we looked at those reasons, and as a formulator, I know that one mushroom cannot do all of those things without help. So all of those things go in different directions. Anxiety, you're floating somewhere above your head. It's like you need your balloon string pulled down. It's a high vibration. You might have a hard time sitting down. You're moving around a lot. You are worried. Your thoughts are moving quickly. Uh, when you're depressed and fully depressed, you may have a hard time getting up. You may have a hard time starting an action. Your thoughts may be moving slowly, unclearly. You might be experiencing brain fog. Um, so that's completely different energy and vibration than what's happening when you're anxious. And sometimes those cross over, sometimes they happen concurrently. Sometimes we're having a confused state that's both up here and down here at the same time. And then when you're dealing with irritability, stress tolerance, and lack of focus, you're talking about kind of bringing your focus and your energy inwards. So, in the case of all these things being differently, I built formulas that are synergistic with the practice of microdosing that help all the rest, that help that microdose actually get where it's going. So, I use the analogy, if microdosing was your lifeboat that lifted you out of the water, microdrops are your oar and rudder that help you get to shore. So we're up out of the water. We can look around. We can see, oh gosh, we were just at the bottom of a lake for a while. Things were really rough down there. And now that we can breathe and now that we're on a lifeboat, it turns out we need to make it over there to a place where my anxiety is not so rampant that it is keeping me from working, letting my kids go out to play without freaking out, having a normal day to day life. So maybe in that case, you take our grounded formula, which is full of ashwagandha, also a popular, a newly popular herb in the nootropic space, which helps build stress tolerance and also deeply nourishes the reproductive system and the nervous system and really helps to ground the body. We use kava kava, which also helps to ground the body. We also use different herbs that help to increase dopamine, increase serotonin. All of our formulas have lion's mane, which stimulates neurogenesis, which is like the rebuilding of the neural pathways in the brain. So our formulas can be used alone, on their own, and when used with microdosing, improve its effectiveness dramatically. So we created these formulas for those people who were microdosing as well, or for people who want a way to take herbal medicine that just don't like a pill, a tincture, those things. It's pretty easy to fall off things when they don't taste good. And the nice thing about our synergistic formulas is that cacao is synergistic with microdosing mushrooms. So our formulas have cacao and dates and MCT oil, and they've got a whole host of lovely herbs in them, and they taste good in your coffee. So as much as I know, as much as it's true that having anxiety and drinking coffee are like adding gasoline to a fire, um, it is also true that a large portion of people who complain of anxiety drink coffee. It is just the truth. When I was a Ayurvedic practitioner, it was just a hard thing that I learned. No matter what people would come in with, they'd say, "I will do anything to get rid of this anxiety." And I say, "Well, will you stop drinking coffee?" Except that. um, so it can be a real challenge. So we meet people where they're at. All of our formulas are good in coffee. All of our formulas taste good in tea. All of our formulas taste good in water. All of them can be taken directly by mouth, and they're really just kind of fun to take. They taste like a really sweet, lovely syrup with a bit of a spice kick at the end. So that's kind of a mini introduction. And then we, like beyond that, we've gone a little farther recently into DIY dose it yourself microdosing kits that take all of the guesswork out of microdosing. We sell no illegal substances. They are simply what we call BOIOM, bring your own mushrooms, and you add your own to our formulas. And we take all the guesswork out of making professionally stacked capsules at home so that you don't have to worry about some Instagram, person trying to sell you things that are not legal to buy online.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Talk about empowering. You're really
Yeah,
giving the people back their power to heal themselves in this kind of way.
that's what I'm all about. That has the core thing that I have seen over the years of practicing with people is the serious damage that happens when we give away our power in both medical and any healing context. We tend to it's honestly slower when you give away your power to someone else, even if it seems easier. It's not. At the end of the day, you might spend 30 years like giving your power away to someone else only to never really make any progress. Or you could spend a year that's highly transformative where you're essentially in the fire, cooking. And by the time you come out, you're a whole cake. So
Mhm.
I am, I'm a big advocate of, getting on top of, like, looking at our challenges as something that are tailor made for us to get right on top of and ride through life. Like, they are the challenges that are specifically given to you are gifts. Those are ones that if you decide to take them on, then life gets so much easier. It doesn't actually get harder. Instead of having your problems ride you, you ride them.
Mhm. Yeah. When you talk about those kits, like the DIY kits and how someone could essentially make their own microdosing, I don't know if they're pills, I'm not sure how people take them. But do you ever feel worried that someone may not complete the task properly and may take too much or do something that would be disruptive if you don't have the oversight over it?
Right. So yes, of course, there is all of these gray spaces of who's in charge of what. So we provide a ton of information, including with our friends over at Third Wave. If you look at the Third Wave online, you'll find that they have comprehensive microdosing guides that on almost every substance that can be microdosed. And then beyond that, when we sell these kits, we sell them right down to, we have gram scales that come with them. We have explicit
Mm,
instructions of how you, and we do so for harm reduction purposes and for education. We are not, like I said,
okay.
we're not in the business of selling anything illegal, nor would we want to be. So in order to make this as safe as possible, you're able to pick up one of our sachets. One of our sachets is going to have enough to make 100 capsules. All you do is follow the chart that's on the back. You've got a scale. If you bought the kit full on from us, you've got the scale, you've got the grinder, you've got your capsules, you've got your capper, you got everything you need to do, and it's actually really easy. So we make it so that it's hard to mess up so long as you are following the instructions that are on there and so long as you're using an accurate scale. Of course, we have disclaimers all over our products saying if you're using a plain old kitchen scale that does not weigh down to the milligram, you are not going to have an accurate dose. But
Right.
when you buy these things, when you buy a capsule on from someone you don't know, you really don't know what's in it at the end of the day. So unless you're the one who ground those mushrooms, if you're taking a pill from someone you don't know with a ground powder in it, your chances of having the dose be off are high. Your chances of being given something you didn't expect to be given are high. And so when you're able, the biggest barrier for people to cross is to obtain the mushrooms themselves. And it really depends on the place that they're in, their tolerance for risk where they're in, because it is not fully legal everywhere. And it should be really clear that it is not fully legal everywhere. They are fairly easy to access at this point. And so, as long as you can get a hold of the mushrooms, and our target audience tends to be people who are already pretty okay that they can come up with the mushrooms to begin with. We're not asking
Mhm.
anyone who is uncomfortable with doing that to ever break a law or engage with something that is outside of their comfort zone. So
Yeah.
this would be for those
Yeah.
people who are
I was
ready for
thinking
that.
that too, like you either put your trust in the person providing you the capsule that's already been prepared, or you put your trust in yourself in creating it. So it's, just an interesting way to look at it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a fine line. It's a really interesting time that we're in. I mean, I live in Oregon. I'm comfortable about talking about these things because all drugs are decriminalized here. We have Measure 109 for therapeutic use of psilocybin has been passed and is in process of being enacted. That's also happening in multiple states around the country. If you live in Oakland, if you live in Colorado, these are not worries for you anymore. Obtaining mushrooms is both easy and not going to land you in trouble. If you live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, you're in pretty good shape. If you live in Washington D.C., you're in pretty good shape. In fact, you can go get mushrooms on the streets in Washington and like at kiosks in Washington D.C.
Hmm.
At what they call sticker stores. So I mean, people are going all around their own, personal limitations depending on what's going on in their state. And I encourage you to get to know what's going on in your state. And if this is medicine that you're interested in working with and you are not comfortable breaking any sort of laws, totally understandable, then work with your local governments to make sure that people have access to this totally safe medicine. Look at the studies on Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins University is full of studies on psychedelics. So the more you can be active in the process of getting this to be accessible to people, the easier it will be to have options that are not just prescription.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge, all this wisdom, all this information. I know I learned a lot from today's episode. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you some just for fun type questions about you, Andrea, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more personally. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. Let's see. Are you more of an introvert or an extrovert?
I am an ambivert. Are you familiar with that term?
I am, but go ahead and explain for those who aren't.
I am both, probably pretty strongly both. So I can be very extroverted and then need extreme periods of aloneness to recharge. So I am both a person that can easily spend a week without speaking or without seeing anyone. And I equally love being in front of an audience.
Yeah, love it. Let's see. If you could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? Calories
Oh, I
don't
knew
count.
you were going to do this one to me because this one was the hardest one. And I said, can I have a cuisine? Because I will take all Mediterranean food for the rest of my life, bar none. And if I got to
Yeah,
pick
that is,
one, we're going with hummus.
hummus.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I feel like someone else has said that on this show before, and I was like, all right, interesting choice. I like it. I like it. What if you could go on vacation anywhere in the world tomorrow? Where would it be?
It would be southern Italy. Food, beaches, coffee, all the things.
You know that's where I'm from.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I worked for about 6 months in the Cantieri Navale shipyard in Palermo.
Oh, wow. Okay, we're gonna have to continue that conversation offline. So interesting. Okay. What if they made a movie about you? Who would play you?
Oh, I had to look up her name. Oh yeah, because the one that I've always wanted to play me in my secret movie is Alex Kingston, the one who plays Dr. Riversong on Doctor Who. So if you're not a Doctor Who fan, go check her out. She's my favorite character.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna look her up after this. All right, and finally, what's something most people don't know about you?
Most people don't know that I spent a while I've been in more than 40 countries.
Mm,
And I have been in countries and cities that I can't even remember because I worked out on the ocean.
how amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we officially wrap up, please just let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can access microdrops, where they can learn more about this, natural healing method if they're curious.
Yeah, so if you go to microdrops.com, it's spelled with a Y, microdrops.com. And your listeners get a special discount. They get $10 off on their first purchase with code Mama Work It. So if
Yes.
you want to have $10 off on your first purchase, whether you're a microdoser or not a microdoser, we've got something for everybody in the natural healing space. Our products are also newly listed on Amazon. Make sure you search them with an Mycrodrops and make sure they don't correct you and try to turn it into an I, and then you will find us. And we're even on sale over there this week.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you said that because my first book is called Time Management and they always autocorrect it.
Always autocorrect it. Yeah,
Yeah.
they will try to autocorrect you all over the place, but we are micro, sort of like Myco, Mycro. Thank
All
you.
right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Andrea. This was so fascinating, so interesting, and I know I learned a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. I genuinely appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.